same sections in the Notary Act in Florida and Texas. So I'm pretty sure you're going to find the same level of remedy available to you there.
Thinkfree.ca for Canada. Excellent site. I looked it up. Now, so what you're saying is just, this notice of understanding. Basically, you don't even need a lawyer, do you, with that?
No. I've seen some where it was so simple where the guy tried to study the law, and I've studied the law. I've got a good brain for it. I've been gifted that way. He had a really good heart, and he couldn't figure it out, and I said, don't worry about it. Just express your understanding. And his level of understanding was, I believe that love, compassion, and truth is my law. I looked in your statutes, couldn't find those words anywhere. Therefore, these statutes cannot be my law. The old system simply isn't going to work, and what is going to happen, I'm quite happy about it, because what I see happening is all of the deceivers are going to be bound in the cages that they themselves created with their own words. And everyone else who wants to set free are going to be free to do that. And
it is a word game.
Yeah, and it's going to be very easy to identify them, and they'll never be able to step out, because if they do, they're stepping into the liability of our own courts, of our own justice system. But my brother, we discharged $67.5 million worth of student loans using this process, using a notice of understanding and intent and a claim of right, and it boils down to one fundamental truth. Before God, we're all equal, and no one can govern you without your consent. No one can provide adjudication services without your consent. If you look at the courthouses up here, at least in British Columbia, the sign on the door used to say court hours. Then that changed to hours of operation. Now it reads business hours. This is a business they're doing. It's all about money, and they are at least now waking up and recognizing that they need your consent, and if they try to impose it. I was arrested once for contempt of court, and I told the judge that I was a free man on the land. He was abducting me under the color of law. I did not consent to this. He turned white, and I was out of there 45 minutes later. And you just lay it off. These are just human beings using words, and if you create your own words, put them on top of theirs and say, well, before you start using yours against me, let's deal with these. It's a game. It's a game. At any time you can just say, no, I'm done, I'm walking away. And what they want you to do is stand against them, show them your fist, and say, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to be angry, and I'm going to bring all this energy to bear. But it doesn't win. It never wins. It's exactly what they want. And all you have to do is say, nope, sorry, I'm not playing with you.
All of government operates like this, doesn't it? It's just an intimidation game, and you have to out-intimidate them by showing that you're not...
No, you don't. No, you don't have to out-intimidate them at all. You just have to laugh at them.
Well, I mean, that's what winds up happening, though.
Yeah, well, they want you to try playing the out-intimidation game. Just stand there and smile at them and laugh at them and be a puppy. But ideally, you want to bring peace, eh? I mean, it says, blessed be the peacemakers, not blessed be the most intimidating. The way I look at it, I draw an analogy about a nanny, and a lot of people will refer to it as a nanny state. And imagine for a moment, it is a nanny state. If you are pooping your pants and bringing poo all over places where everyone walks, they can and will put a diaper on you. If you're throwing a tantrum, they can and will put you in your room until you settle down. If you're rebellious, they'll put a curfew on you and they will enforce it. But if you get to the point where you grow up and you say, listen, Nanny, I'm not doing any of these things anymore, and I don't need your diaper, I'm not throwing a tantrum, and I'm not rebellious, because guess what? I'm the owner of the house, and you now work for me, and I'm leaving, and I'll be back in the morning, and you'll have breakfast ready, and you give her a tap on the bum, and you leave. When we grow up spiritually, they lose the power. They only have the power when we're pooping or throwing tantrums or being rebellious.
Somebody was asking, I was just looking during the break in the chat room, and someone was asking, Robert, if you could cite any cases, specific ones, where, this has been successful. I imagine you probably have a great many, right?
Well, the funny thing is, when it's successful, you don't end up in court, so there are no cases to cite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it ends before it even...
They will shuffle it right out. If you wanted to look at, there's one specifically, R.V. Lutz. Brian Lutz was charged with failure to file, And that's one of the key cases where they pointed out that the lack of joinder between the number and the person meant the person owed nothing, that it was that number that was necessary, and if there is no association established between that number and the individual, there can be no obligation on the individual. And there's certainly nothing out there that says you cannot disassociate or abandon a number.
So, yeah, it isn't much different than what we have down here. It's the same thing. They entrap you with the number. You call it, what was it, a social
insurance number.
Insurance number. Yeah, and what do you...
They call it
insurance.
Yeah.
What are you insured of? You're insured that you're going to be exploited. That's your insurance.
Well, what they do up here, it used to be called, you needed that number to get unemployment insurance, and then because of a certain court case, I forget which one, they now call it employment insurance. If you go to Human Resources Canada, they call it a federal employee identification number. And you needed to pay into a pension plan, and the courts have ruled that payment into a pension plan is prima facie evidence of employee status. So up here, what I try to tell people is they're complaining about their government, but it's not really their government they're complaining about. They're complaining about their employer. And if they quit, that employer suddenly has very, very little power, and as long as they're willing to live their life without harming another human being, damaging someone else's property, or using fraud or mischief in their contracts, the government has absolutely no power whatsoever.
Right.
And even the courts up here have acknowledged that they need two parties before them, each consenting to, to the adjudication and acknowledging the conflict. And if you are the one who truly put the love in your heart, you're just going to find a path that is going to allow you to avoid the conflict. You use a conditional acceptance, you smile and you laugh at them, and you treat them not like they're a bully, someone you should fear, but like a child that you can pick up and tickle or take off your belt and spank them.
Are you a sovereign yourself,
I consider myself to be a free man on the land, and I would claim sovereign status, except I think that to a certain degree that takes away from my duty to God. I think fundamentally God must be seen as sovereign, and I'm a servant of God to a large degree, but certainly I don't have any human being above me claiming higher status.
Right. So, I mean, do you still have your social insurance number? Or?
No way.
Once you get that number, you have submitted to their authority, and you're making yourself subordinate, and whatever decision they make, you're going to abide by. People don't realize, that is what it amounts to.
Yeah, you're joining a house party, and you can leave the house party. When you leave, you might have to give up certain benefits. You aren't going to get to listen to the music or eat the food. But if they're just playing polka music and force-feeding you pablum anyways, I mean, what sort of benefit is that? If you don't know what you're giving up in exchange for societal benefits, how do you know what you're getting is a benefit? Would you buy a car, not know what you paid for it, and then say, oh, I got a great deal?
Boy, they got people suckered.
Well, to a large degree, I think people have brought it on themselves. There's a maxim in law that states, let he who would be deceived be deceived. And all of the change that you complain about, these chains of deception essentially, they're all made from links of our own ignorance, and they're so easy to break. And what I'm starting to see is that it is, in fact, I think it's a process whereby it's necessary for us to do this to become spiritually more aware. And I think you become far more powerful if you stop bemoaning the fact that there are people out there who have taken advantage of our own sleepiness. We are being woken up one way or another, and that's a good thing, I think. So I'd rather just concentrate on getting the camp happening and, getting the coffee on, and so people, when they do wake up, they smell something besides just the crying babies. And I'm going to show them the process by which they can use a notary public to open up a court and establish that the government simply does not have the right to take this property, and empower the cops to refuse any orders contrary to this. It's absolutely key. Because if you don't do that, these people are going to be in a position where they have no choice. But if you can show them that it is just as much a function of law for you to say no to the government and for you to have that right protected by them, as it is